Welcome to another edition of Turn 6 Garage, and today we're discussing two very underrated cars. Two cars that for $7,000 you get a lot of car for the money. Two cars that also people have overlooked in the marketplace because they're a bit unusual in terms of what they are, because they don't fit the mould that most buyers want. And these two are Kia Rondo and the Peugeot 207 station wagon. These two cars are available both as manuals and automatics, and both of these cars represent outstanding value for money. So, which one of these should you buy? In terms of performance, neither are going to set your heart racing. Both are pretty slow. However, they're not too slow. The Rondo goes from 0 to 100 in 10.8 seconds, while the Peugeot takes 11.4 with a 1.6 petrol, the most common engine in the SW. You can also get a diesel in the Peugeot as well, and you can go even slower. In terms of practicality though, these two cars absolutely shine. Now, yes, they can be had with 7 seats, and the third row is quite pokey, unless you're really small, but fundamentally the interior space for the first 2 rows is excellent in both cars. They're very easy to get in and out of. They're actually quite spacious considering their size, and also both cars feel quite comfortable to sit in, which is quite good. In terms of build quality, they're both about the same. While the Rondo does have some tacky plastics in the interior, so does the Peugeot. And of course, the switchgear in the Rondo feels quite solid and positive. The Peugeot's a little less so. So, what are they like to drive? Well, this is the most surprising aspect. I would think that before I drove both of them, that these two were clunkers. They drive terribly and handle badly and ride badly, but actually nothing could be further from the truth. The Peugeot is by far and away the better one to drive. Even though this is a Peugeot's terrible era where their cars weren't as good as previously, it actually drives really well. The handling's really good, the ride is really good, and okay, the performance isn't brilliant, but you can really enjoy throwing this thing around. In all fairness, with a manual gearbox, a good set of tyres, and sorted suspension, you could have a great time with the 207 wagon. The Rondo, well, it's not too bad. The ride's quite good. The steering is a little bit sloppy. But again, if you got good tyres and a manual gearbox, you could have a good time with this thing. You can actually chuck it into corners and it's not that offensive to drive. So now we get to the reason why these two are cheap. Reliability. Okay. The Rondo is powered by a 2-litre Theta engine from Hyundai Kia. Yes, that engine with piston ring issues and injector pump issues and oil burning issues. Now, part of the reason of this happening is because the cars aren't especially tolerant. They're built to very tight tolerances, and if you don't maintain them, like so many owners of these cars have, including the previous owner of this vehicle pictured, well, that's when they tend to have problems. However, it's not really the car's fault that the fact that it's got oil to the tip of the dipstick. Yeah, that was the state that I found this Rondo before I bought it. Or should I say, when I picked it up from the depot. Yes, I bought this sight unseen. Clever idea. The Peugeot, well, there's even more question marks on that. Now, the 1.4-litre 207 is the best one to buy of the bunch. But that's not available in the wagon in Australia. You have the 1.6 petrol engine with the wonderful timing chain issues. 2006 to November 2011, 1.6 Prince engines in anything from Peugeot, Citroën or Mini like to blow their timing chains up. Now, I would personally buy one of these with a noisy chain and replace the chain because you're going to need to do it anyway. Also powering the 207 is the 1.6-litre turbo diesel, and these like to blow fuel pumps and injectors. Yeah, now, of course, if you get these things remanufactured, it's not the end of the world. If you have to buy them brand new from Bosch, well, that's going to be expensive. Fuel pumps range from anywhere, and from a reman, you can get one for about $800-900. Brand new, $1,800. Ouch. Injectors, same sort of deal. You can get about 4 injectors for $400, remanufactured, or 1 injector for $400, brand new. So, what to pay for one of these things? Well, an absolute bomb in a Rondo or a 207 can be had for under $2,000. And, of course, they have a myriad of issues that you can find. Now, of course, Rondos you can find with a blown engine. And if you get a second-hand engine, which, to be fair, is the same engine you find in the Kia Sorento and in the Kia Coupe, it's not a bad idea. Put another engine in and keep going. And you can get another engine for about $1,000. So you could buy a busted one for $2,000, throw an engine in with a bit of labour, a bit more work, and you're at around $5,000. Not a bad idea. 207, well, noisy chains, pretty obvious. They like to show blowing timing chains at this end of the market. So these cars, again, buy it, change the chain, another $1,500. Bit of fixing, and again, you're left with a car for $5,000. Or in the diesel, change a fuel pump in the injectors, and again, $5,000-6,000. That's actually not a bad idea. If you're willing to take on a bit of a project, these things can actually come out quite good. Now, in terms of running and driving examples that are somewhat fixable and somewhat decent, 5K is where these things start. Now, 5K in a 207 buys you an 07 1.6 with somewhere around the 200,000 kilometre mark. In the Rondo, that is above 250,000 Ks. Now, $7,000 is where these things make a lot of sense. $7,000 in a Rondo gets you a car with under 200,000 Ks in a base EX or LX. And in the Peugeot, again, you're looking at 08, 09, 207 with high hundreds, about 170 to 190,000 kilometres. These make actually quite a lot of sense. But the ones that make the most sense by far and away in these cars is the manual. Manuals in these things are just patently undesirable. And you can get very, very cheap transportation out of them. Seriously. You can get a manual Rondo. I mean, those cars are just undesirable at auctions. I remember one that was up at an auction and $800 and nobody was bidding. I was actually quite tempted by it. So you can get a manual Rondo on the road for under $5,000, and that makes a lot of sense if you need cheap, efficient 7-seat transportation. Same deal with a manual Peugeot. You can get a manual 207 on the road for under $7,000 in a diesel with 100,000 kilometres. It makes a lot of sense. These cars are cheap transport. With all this in mind, which one would I go for? That's a tough one. Both of them represent unbelievable value for money in terms of what you get and the size and practicality. For $7,000, if I had to make a choice, I'd go grab myself a manual 207 outdoor estate. The slightly elevated 1.6 diesel manual would be just the ticket. For $5,000, manual Rondo. So that's simple, because for $5,000, you don't get much better car than a manual Rondo. And that's why it pays to buy something really undesirable if you're on a budget. Because if you know what you're doing and can source the parts yourself and know someone who knows how to fix a car, which is more pertinent with the Peugeot than the Rondo, you can really, really do well out of one of these cars. And if you like what we do, remember to like and subscribe.